I see. All right. We're going to do question and answer. And if anybody has questions, Tim is going to choose. So the pressure's off of me.
Thank you. My question is, if we listen to the same teaching and listen to our teacher over and over again, multiple lifetimes, how do we change our minds and thoughts and actions?
Okay, good. Uh, the question was if we listen to our teacher over and over again, especially in multiple lifetimes, then how do we actually change our thoughts and actions? And there's a thing called trepto, which is one of my teacher's favorite expressions. Trepto means, his example was if a kid acts up. He was a school teacher in the refugee camp, so he got stuck with the elementary school. And he wrote the textbooks for the elementary schools. And so he said, there's a kind of a bad kid. When you correct them, they don't improve, and then you correct them again, and then you correct them again, and then trepto means they get used to correction. From my teacher was hitting you with a mala on the head, hitting you with a rosary on the head, and then he said some kids, they just get to where they don't mind the rosary on the head anymore, and they just get used to it. And then he would say that's a great danger, like your teacher's trying to correct you. You get used to the correction, and then you learn to live with the correction and not correct yourself. And so there is such a thing as trepto. And I think for me, when I went, this was a famous conversation with my teacher, and I was fortunate to live with my teacher for 25 years. And so that was a unique training school. I was the only foreigner who survived in his residence, and many were sent away and other bad things. So I remember I went to him. I asked him this question. I asked him almost all the questions you can think of. And he said, I said, what if you keep correcting me and I get used to the correction and I don't correct myself? And then you keep repeating the same correction, and then I don't change, and then I get immune to your corrections to where I don't hear them anymore. And he said, oh, that's not a problem. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not a problem? He says, suffering. I'm like, what? He said, the world will crush you. The world will bring you new problems, the world will give you some terrible things will happen to you. And then you'll come and listen to me, So I'm like, okay. He says, you don't have to do anything. Just be alive. And the world will bring you new problems. And then you'll come back to me and then you'll listen, So you don't have to do anything. Just live. And life itself will remind you that you have to listen to your teacher. And it's not facetious. I'm not just saying it as a joke or something. It's really true. So, but the trick is to stay in contact or contactable with your teacher. So, if you don't, there's times when you kind of spend time away from your teacher. But always have that option set up that you can get in touch with your teacher, or you can get back to them and ask them for their help like that. So don't burn the bridge. Keep the option open to get help from them when you need. And then life will remind you. If you're really smart, you can anticipate what life's going to do, but very few people can do that. You can guess by observing other people getting old or, dying, or getting cancer, you can guess that it's going to happen to you. So if you're really intelligent, you can work ahead of the game and be in touch with your teacher. But if you're just a normal person, you could wait till you get cancer and then but be in touch with your teacher. So when the time comes, you can get help. Okay. That's the main thing. So it's kind of like just be alive and things will, the connection will be remade when you need it. Okay. Yeah. And that's happened in my life. I have many students over the course of my life, and they come back, they have a challenge, and they get sick or something happens, and they come back, and that's okay. And then we reconnect, and I wake up all the old teachings, and it's fine. It works out, so it's okay. Mr. Tim.
You got me? Thanks. All right. This is a question that came online actually last week on our Facebook page. A friend of ours, her mother got really sick during COVID and wasn't able to fly to Mexico as she was passing away, even though her mom had asked her to be able to do so. And it turned out that her mother passed away before she was able to go and wasn't able to be there with her. And it's brought her a lot of deep grief. And she wanted to know how she could think about this and what advices might you have, even though she wasn't able to be there, that could help her as her mother had transitioned.
Yeah, cool. So this happens to many of us, and it happened to me. And I took care of my real mom as she was dying. And actually, my teacher advised me to bring her to take teachings in the Himalayas, and she came. She was already very ill with cancer in her brain, and she came for I think two months or 3 months and listened to teachings. But I couldn't be there when she died, so I know the question. And what I would say, there's a practice that my teacher taught me. People used to come to him and say, my mom passed away, or they would ask questions like this. And I remember our relationship got to where I asked him so many questions that he got tired of being asked questions. And he decided he would take his meals in his room alone. And so then I would go up and serve the meal and try to sit down and ask the question. And then it got really bad. And the only time I could get a question was traveling with him, like if we were in the car together. And then he'd pretend he was asleep. But we were on a flight to India, and so that's a 12 hours either way, sometimes 20 hours in the plane. And so and he was next to me, he's stuck, and he couldn't pretend to sleep for 12 hours. And I asked him if he had some advice for situations like this, and he gave me he said, take a note. He would say, take a note. And he gave me a long teaching. It was like 3-4 hours about what to do in a situation like this. And it was very beautiful. What he said was very beautiful. And he said, and by the way, Sugang's book also, the new book, it has a nice section on Bardo, on the Bardo. There's an appendix on the Bardo. And during the Bardo, during the time between death and rebirth, those beings have special powers. And they can, and in Sugang's book, we translated that section. So it's not some kind of, there's a book called Book of the Dead or something like that. which is not accepted by 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 the people who understand the Bardo. That book is what do you call it? It's just somebody made up stuff in there. So I would not advise you to use that or read it. I had a friend who tried to use it and spent time in a mental hospital. So I don't think it's, my teacher said, don't use that book. But there are, in the Abhidharma, there are good, solid 2,000-year-old teachings on what happens to you after you die. And my teacher taught that. He taught it from the Abhidharma. And they say that a Bardo being has special powers, and they can understand all languages. $25 for the Yoga Sutra line about that. Never mind. Sarvaruta's Jnanam. Sarvaruta's Jnanam. They can speak, they can understand all languages, all human languages they can understand. So they have a special karma. And if you study the Bardo beings' habits, their mental state, their different powers from the Abhidharma Kosha, you can, it's real. They really can understand when you speak to them. And I had a dream like that. My college roommate died. And I was helping his wife and their 2 kids. And he died suddenly. And I had a dream about him. And he was in the Bardo, and he was behind a glass wall. And he was at his house. And he was watching his wife and their 2 kids eat breakfast. And he was trying to talk to them. And they couldn't hear him, but he could hear them. And he was banging on the glass because he was upset because he didn't know he was dead. And they were ignoring him. And it's like that. So they can hear their family members, and they can understand when you speak. So my teacher encouraged people to speak to their relatives who passed away. And he made a whole practice about it, and it's very beautiful. And I have friends who've been doing it for 20 years, 30 years. I taught this 20 years ago. And so you can, you know, when you're alone in a room, you can do it. I like to go to a park or something and sit on a park bench. Probably people think I'm an odd old man talking to himself. But I'll go to a park and sit on a bench and talk to my mom or something like that. And they can hear you and they can understand you. So it's nice if you want to help them. So what I mean is, it's probably more useful for your mom if you talk to them while they're, after they died, than it is to be there when they die. As the person is dying, there's very little you can do for them. They cannot think straight. They cannot, it's too frightening. And their sense organs are breaking down. That's not the time to talk to somebody, okay? They can understand more, they can hear more afterwards. So I wouldn't be so worried that you weren't there at the moment that your mom passed away. And it's not that crucial. It's helpful, but it's not that crucial. You can do a lot more good afterwards and keep talking to them, keep encouraging them. What's a nice practice, what my teacher asked me to do was keep a list of things my mom had done for me and nice things she had done for me, and then thank her and talk to her. And he said, that's a really cool idea because it makes you more grateful. And it reminds her of the best things she has done in her life. And then we call Bakchak Sepa, which is the 8th and 9th limbs of the 12 links of the Wheel of Life, Gepa Sepa Gupa Limba, which means if your mom can, if you talk to your mom about nice things they did for you, then she will remember, and that will wake up those seeds. The seeds that she has in her mind from having helped you. When you remind her or talk to her about, I remember when you took me to the surf shop and bought me the impossibly expensive 5'11" blue surfboard for $85. And it was a lot of money for us at the time. And I remember when you did that. And then, talk to them about things they did for you. And that's a lot more powerful. So I would say it's not a, and that you can do indefinitely. You can do it for 20 years. It doesn't matter. And the list, if you keep a little journal about nice things they did for you, it gets longer and longer. My journal was 85 pages of stuff that she had done for me. And so it's a great practice. It's a wonderful practice, and you can keep doing it. So I think it's a lot more important to do that than to be there at the moment that they pass. I think, it's a lot more useful for her and for you if you do this practice of talking to her, and reminding her about cool stuff she did. Okay, and that list will just keep getting longer and longer. Okay. One more, Timothy.
Very cool. Thank you for that. So this question kind of plays off of Anna Lei's question from yesterday. So the question is, when we think about emptiness, or we're thinking more about the gotcha, the thing that's not there, right? And we're doing this practice of canceling everything that's not there. And then the thing that arises is the thing that is there. The question really is, what is the seed? The question is, what is the seed for the mental picture at this time, specifically related to emptiness? So if you're having the direct perception of emptiness, you've canceled everything that's not emptiness. But if emptiness is something that's not there that you thought was there, what is that seed? What is the mental picture that arises in that moment?
Yeah, it's good. That's a good question. It's a deep question. So the direct perception of emptiness is divided into two parts, Nyamshak Geshe and Jetop Geshe. Nyamshak Geshe means samapati in Sanskrit, balanced meditation. Balanced between what for $50? Chloe?
Dullness and agitation.
Good. Between dullness and agitation, yeah. Chingwan Gupa. Did I say $5? I don't remember. Yeah, I'll get 50-50. So Nyamshak Geshe means during the actual direct perception, you are focusing on the absence of an impossible thing. Okay, so you are directly perceiving the fact that nothing is not coming from you. Okay, double negative. Okay, so during that time, you cannot have any other perceptions. Not possible. What's the most frustrating perception you cannot have at that moment? I did it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You cannot say I did it because I is not emptiness. Did it is not emptiness. It is not. Well, so then, but there's something happens in the direct perception of emptiness. The power of the absence of anything that doesn't come from you, that absence has a specific power. Okay, the fact that nothing's not coming from you, okay, that fact, which is the highest thing in the universe, okay, that is the highest thing in the universe. If you want to have a God, that's God. Okay, and by the way, someone reminded me it's not only Easter, it's Passover and Ramadan. So, congratulations to everybody. It's also Easter break for Joe and the other college students. Just kidding. The extreme power of seeing highest reality does something in the following. The J-top means the aftermath. Okay, so like the afterglow, and you could talk about it in yoga terms, in prana terms, chi, that for the first time, all of your prana has entered the central channel. All the chi is in the jongmai, and for the first time. And when you come down out of the direct perception in the 20 minutes or so, the chi is still there in unprecedented quantity in the central channel. It's not gonna leave the central channel the moment you come out of shamatha. So it stays there for about 24 hours. And because of that, you have extraordinary normal perceptions, which are not emptiness. And those are called the 16 aspects of the Arya, for higher truth, for Arya truth. And they include, for example, seeing directly the day of your death. So nobody really believes they're going to die except an Arya, because an Arya has seen it directly. They have seen, for an Arya, they don't say die, they say on the day that gravity wins the contest. Okay, like you are a weird animal that walks upright. I was thinking about it yesterday. I went for a long walk, and all the animal paths here are frustrating because they go under trees and under bushes. Animals are only this high. So you can't really follow the animal paths here because they go under everything. You see what I mean? Human beings are one of the few creatures that compete with gravity their whole life. They struggle to learn to walk at 2, to stand up unnaturally, vertically. And then sooner or later, that contest is won by gravity. And an Arya has seen that. They have seen directly the day of their death. By the way, they've also seen where they are going afterwards. So they're kind of like, okay, they know what's coming next. So, and then of course they have this perception of bodhicitta. They have actual bodhicitta, real bodhicitta. And they meet every living being. And they've gone through the Dakshanyamje, right? They've been through that practice. Number, which of the 5 list? Exchanging myself and others? Number 4, okay. Step number 4. So they've been through that. They know how to do it. They meet every living being directly. So, so the aftermath, when the prana is still in the central channel, is a lot of not direct perceptions of emptiness. They are normal perceptions. They are abnormal, but supernormal, but they are not the direct perception of emptiness. And the things they see are positive things and not an absence of something. So it's different, right? So that's the main thing. That's the relationship between an unchanging negative object, emptiness, and then all of those 16 aspects of the 4 truths. For example, seeing your death, seeing where you're headed after that, meeting every living being. Those are fallout. You can say fallout from the experience, okay? And those are normal perceptions of changing objects, positive objects, okay? Does that help? So the direct perception of something that's not there leads to many subsequent, Jeto means subsequent perceptions of high changing truths. Okay, cool. Does that cover that question? I guess so. That's how I want to cover it. Okay. We're going to go back to the text, okay? I'm really making an attempt to finish this book before 2080 or something. All right. Shiba Dakshan Jewe Sabanguni. Ngu means now I'm going to give you the real thing. Okay. So finally, Pabon Rinpoche also is getting down for it. All right. And he says, here's part 4. Here's how to exchange yourself and others. Okay. Kin Yun La Samba. Kin Yun La Samba means look, we finished thinking about the kyuns and we finished thinking about the yuns. He's making alliteration? Yeah. So anyway, kin means problems of trying to, the useless attempt to take care of yourself first. You know, and again, you can keep doing it as long as you want. It's hopeless. It doesn't work. Okay. So, but if you wanna have a miserable life, keep doing it. You know, keep trying to take care of yourself first. Okay. Then then guna, good qualities. You know, just let go and focus on other people's needs. Your needs will get covered automatically. Don't worry about it. You know, just get in the habit of seeing what the people around you need and accommodate it. It doesn't mean, I don't buy this sacrifice thing that you have to sacrifice your happiness and work on other people's happiness. It's unnatural. Nobody will do it. Okay. It just happens to be, luckily, that when you focus on what other people need, that's the happiest thing you can do. So that's lucky it works out that way. You don't have to make a choice between what you want and what other people want. You just have to get really good at synthesizing the two so that you can get everything you want and they get everything they want. And that's a happy ending for everybody, okay? All right, so Samba Deta Butakne, okay, now that we've discussed how hopeless it is to try to take care of yourself first all the time, Rangni Chenzinki Chongne Di, Rangni Chepan Zimbe Chongne Di. He says, you should think about those 4 verses. And then he gives the first line of 16 lines. And he says, everybody knows the rest. Okay. The line he quotes is a Rangni Chepa Zimbe Chongne. Chongne means what do you call that? A cough that won't go away for years. Chronic cough or something like that. Did you ever have one for like 2 years or something? I don't know. There's chronic things that happen to you. If you're lucky, they go away after a year or 2, but you just cough for a year or you cough for 2 years. You go to the doctor and they say, yeah, you have a cough. And you're like, I know I have a cough. Well, that'll be $100. You're like, what? And so it's this thing that won't go away, okay? What's the thing that won't go away? Rangni Chenzen. Chronic habit of thinking about what you want. So he doesn't call it bad habit or something like that. He calls it a chronic disease. He says the chronic disease of taking care of yourself first. Okay. So you being great students, I figure you want the whole 4 verses. Don't listen to Tim. Okay. Sugang, you got a picture for me, I think, though. It's the cover of the 3 Treasures prayer book. Okay. Guys, did you find it? No? Yes? Anyway, it's there. Okay, don't worry about it. Let's do the 4 lines. Let's do the 4 verses. What he's quoting is the Lama Chupa, which you did the first night here. Okay, it's called the Offering to Lama. That's the first prayer I ever sat in. I arrived in the Himalayas on a bus. I went to this Tibetan library. It just opened for foreigners, and there was like 20 monks there doing Lama Chupa. I walked into Lama Chupa. It's the first thing I ever heard. And here's the first verse. Rangni Chepan Zembe Chomnin Di Minde Dunga Kepe Yortongne Lelen De La Kundu Sungchete Dangshin Dunshin Jomba Jinkilo. Rangni Chepan Zembe Chomne Di, this chronic disease of taking care of myself first. Minde Dunga Kepe Yortongne. If you suddenly wake up and see it's giving you all the problems you ever had, Lelen De means, Lelen De is a very rare Tibetan word that means you figure out who's really causing you trouble. What do you call that? You put the blame on the right person. Well, there's a saying in English. Yeah, you could say that. Something like that. I mean, you just wake up and you say, all these years, that's what's been messing me up. You know, you're like, you put the blame in the right place. Lelen De means, len means the blame, okay? Lelen De, la kundu sung. And then he says, I want you to feel kun. Kun means, kunzin means, what is it when someone hurts you over and over again and you start getting like, huh? Yeah, that's kun. Kun means, it's funny because here's the Buddhist teacher saying, please feel resentful. You know, please feel resentment for what? He says the Dun Chen means the great demon. Taking care of myself first. He said, I want you to develop resentment. You know, you have been ruining my life, my whole life. And I'm so sick of you. And now I finally figured out there's this sense of discovery in this verse. Aha, Sherlock, you know, that's what's been messing me up my whole life. You know, you're like, aha, I figured it out, you know. And then you're like, God, you're such an asshole, you know, to give me this trouble my whole life, you know. And then he's like cursing here, like, it's not me, okay? He's like, you should say, you asshole, I figured it out. You're the one who's been causing me all this trouble. It's supposed to be a verse of discovery and resentment, okay? Please best bless me to murder this guy. Who? My habit of taking care of myself first, okay? That's the first verse, okay? Manam chesung de la gope lo taye yenden jung me gortong ne goa di da daki dra lang kyang so la chepa zimba jingi lo. Manam chesung dewa gope lo. This is chepa zimba, okay, past tense. Taking care of my moms, okay? Taking care of my moms. Now I figured it out. It's the sweetest thing I can do with my life. It's the most fun, sweet thing to do in my life. Is just look at what other people need, what other people want, help them get what they want, help them get what they need. And that's the sweetest way to live a human life. And it's so satisfying, and it's so sexy, and it's so fun, okay? And he's like, this is also a verse of discovery. Whoa, I just figured out what's really fun is taking care of other people, what they want, you know, and doing that first. And I'll take care of myself, I'll get there. By the way, it's not giving up anything. He's just saying, take care of everybody, okay? And you're one of everybody, so don't worry about it. We'll cover you. You cover everybody, you got yourself covered. Okay, then he says something hard. If everybody in the world decided they hate your guts, okay, all right, okay, like you have the karma to be trolled by everybody online, okay. Sokle chepa zimba jingalo. May you bless me, my lama, to love them even more. You know, more than my own life. Sokle means my own life. Even if I get trolled by the whole world at once, please bless me that I will cherish those trollers even more than my own life. Okay, that's, boy, not easy. Okay. Third verse. Dorna chiba rangden konadang to wang shenden bashik zebai kendan yendan yewe topelu dakshan nyam jenuba jingilo. Dorna chiba rangden konadang. What's a chiba? Bala in Sanskrit. Yeah, kid, 2-year-old. We have this derogatory connotation in English. He's acting like a 2-year-old. You know, I've never spent time around little kids because I never had them, but I've been around Maitri, and when he hit 2, it was a little difficult. That's when I kicked him out of the studio at DCI. So Chiba Rangden Kona means, Chiba in Buddhism is a 2-year-old is an insult for people who are selfish, who take care of themselves first. It's also a synonym for someone who has not seen emptiness directly. Probably the two are very connected, can we say? Seriously, if you don't see emptiness, you're more likely to take care of yourself first. There's a connection there. We got to talk more about it, okay? Tubong Shenden Bashik Zebai. But Buddhists, they just focus on everything that other people need. May I come to the realization of the difference, okay? Yewa means bless me to realize the difference between a 2-year-old and a being who sees all objects in the universe. Duh. Okay, it's like, bless me to see the difference between a selfish little 2-year-old and a Buddha who sees all objects in the universe. You know, please bless, I don't know why you need a blessing to see that, but please bless me to get the difference, okay? And with that understanding, bless me to Dakshe Nyamje. Bless me to do the practice of, when you say Dakshe Nyamje, it's 2 different things, okay? Never call it exchanging only. Call it equal rights. They want to say equalizer. It sounds like a battery to me. I don't know. You know, may I come to the understanding that everybody has an equal right to happiness, and then may I exchange myself and others, which doesn't mean what you think it does. And I just decided at this very moment, it's been cooking in my mind, Tim. He doesn't go to Shantideva. He doesn't do the classic Nyamje. So we better, you know, slight detour to get the correct details. Okay. All right, but that's another story for later in the week. Dakshin Nyamje. So please bless me. Once I figured out the difference between a 2-year-old and a being who sees every object in the universe, therefore, I should do Dakshin Nyamje. That's weird, right? Got it? Because I understand the difference between a 2-year-old who just focuses on what they want, and 2-year-olds do, by the way, except Maitri, who always feeds people. bless me to see the difference between these two people. Therefore, let me exchange myself in others. What's the logic there? Why does one follow from the other? That's something you have to think about. Okay, last verse. Rangni chenzen guba kungi go. This is a very, very famous summary from the Lama Chupa of these ideas. Okay, here's the most famous verse summarizing these ideas. Rangni chenzen guba kungi go. Taking care of myself first was the door to every problem I ever had in my whole life. Every problem I've ever had in my whole life, sooner or later, it can be traced back to trying to take care of myself first. What's the next verse going to say? Yeah, the opposite. Manam chinsen yunden kungi shi. Taking care of others is the foundation of all good qualities. By the way, he's making a pun, Buddhist pun here. He's writing in the 1600s, I think, first Panchen Lama. And he says, Yunden Kungi Shi Aya, source of all my good. Okay, he says the source of all my good is thinking of my mother's first, and he's making a pun because that's that famous poem by Jetsun Kaba. We're working on a new version of that book, by the way. So that was called Preparing for Tantra. And I think we're going to change it to Door to the Diamond Way or something like that. Okay. Deichir Dakshan Jewi Nyamjorla, Nyamla Ningbo Chepa Jingilo. Therefore, let me study yoga. Okay. Nyamjor here is yoga. It's the Tibetan word for yoga. Jor is obvious because that means to join, like yuj, the Sanskrit root yuj, which means to join oxens on a yoke or yoga practice, right? But here he says, now jor is the Tibetan translation of yoga, the Sanskrit word yoga. Jor is easy, it means to connect. But now means accurately. So the word for yoga in Tibetan is accurate practice, accurate application of myself to my practice. How's that? That's the Tibetan word for yoga. Okay. What's the yoga here? Dakshen Je. Exchanging myself and others. So what did he leave out there? Nyam. We finished with the equal thing. Let's go to the Dakshen Nyamba. Jewa. So by the way, you can say Dakshen Nyamje is Dakshen Nyamba and Dakshen Jewa. It's two different practices. Dakshen Nyamje is two different practices, Dakshen Nyamba and Dakshen Jewa. Recognize equal right to happiness and then exchange what I want with others, what others want, okay, like that. Two different practices. You can't do the Jewa without the Nyamba. You can't exchange yourself and others without recognizing that they have rights also. Okay, cool. Nyamlan Nyingbo Jepa Jingilo. Please bless me to make this Nyamlan Nyingbo. Please bless me to be smart enough to make this my main practice. Okay, it's a very beautiful line. The last line is very beautiful. Please bless me to be smart enough spiritually to make it my main practice to take care of what other people want. And by the way, just as a way of life, it's very, very satisfying. Okay, it's a very, very enjoyable when you get good at it. Just watching what other people want, what other people need. It's a very sweet life. It's a very, very cool, nice way to live. You feel good all day long. Okay, it's no sacrifice. It's a pleasure. Okay, all right. Next picture, you guys got pictures for me? Yeah, I was trying to find a picture of exchanging, and that's the best I could come up with. I don't know, you could read something into the square.